G'day everyone, in this video we'll be taking a look at the PSD file import option in the GT Designer. This is an easy way to import Photoshop files so that you can animate elements and text from those files in the GT Designer. Then you can create titles that you can add into vMix. Now if you go to File and then Import PSD, you'll be able to convert Photoshop files if you've got vMix 4K Pro or Max. Now this is a really simple conversion that will take images, shapes and groups from Photoshop files and convert them to objects that you can use in the GT Designer. These are rasterized objects, so you won't have the same type of control over them as you would in Photoshop. The general idea is to create all of the elements that you want in Photoshop for your title and then use the GT Designer to animate them. You can create text layers in Photoshop and they will be editable in the GT Designer. So first things first, you want to make sure that your production, your GT Designer title, and your Photoshop canvas are all the same size. So I have a vMix production here, 1920 by 1080. I've got my GT title here, and I'm going to make this 1920 by 1080. And then I want to make sure that my Photoshop canvas is 1920 by 1080, which it is if you check the bottom left-hand corner. Now we do have a guide on these things in our knowledge base, and I'll link them in the description. So I'll just go over those in this video here. So firstly, you just need to go over and select image, go to mode, make sure it says RGB color and 8 bits per channel. Then we need to sort out our layers over here. Now you can see that I've created some groups here. I've created multiple groups just to kind of make things a little bit easier when I bring them over to vMix, because it will generate these groups as layer sets in vMix. So then I can animate an entire layer together and just kind of makes it a little bit easier to sort them. If you do have groups like this, you will need to make sure that they're only one layer deep. So don't have a group within a group within a group. So it just needs to be one layer. So make sure that that's the case. You can have all of these on the same level. Like you don't have to have groups like I have here. That's entirely up to you how you want to do it. All right, now we need to make sure that we rasterize all of our shape layers and those type of things. So this one here, as you can see, this is a shape layer. So I need to make sure that I rasterize it. And I've already done that for these other shapes here as well. You don't need to rasterize your text. So any of your text fields that you have like here and here, make sure you don't rasterize those, as the GT Designer needs to be able to read them correctly. Now, if you do have something like an image, like I have here, that has effects on it, so this has an inside stroke, you might have a drop shadow or something like that. Anything with an effect, you will need to rasterize that, so it will combine the image with the effect that you have on it. So you need to right click on it and then rasterize the layer style. That will combine that stroke on that image now. All right, now we need to quickly talk about fonts. So if you've got a font here that you want to use, make sure that it's a system font that you've installed to your computer. It won't work with the Adobe font. So this is a font that I've downloaded from Google. It's a Montserrat, it's a free font, and I can install it on this computer, and now I can use it across Photoshop, and I can use it in vMix, and I can use it in the GT Designer. And if I pass this title on to somebody else, they could download and install that particular font as well. So make sure it's a system font, not an Adobe font. And sometimes with the formatting with Photoshop, it can look slightly different when you bring it into the GT Designer. So make sure that you just double check that and just tweak it in the GT Designer if you need to make any sort of changes. Now, as you're not rasterizing your text, you will need to make sure that you don't have any styles on text, like drop shadows or strokes or outer glows and that type of thing, because they won't come across. You will need to add any effects that you want to text in the GT Designer. So now I just need to save my file. So I'm going to go up here to File, Save As, and then I'm going to click this one here. And then you'll see this box here, and you want to make sure that you tick Maximise compatibility. So that's important. So it will work in the GT Designer. Then click OK. In October 2024, Adobe changed the way that Photoshop saved files. So in order to fix this, we had to add an update to vMix 27.0.0.86. So if you're using Photoshop 26 or newer, you'll need to have at least vMix 27.0.0.86 in order for those save files to work correctly when importing them to the GT Designer. Now, if we come back to the GT Designer, we just need to go to File, Import PSD, find the file we just saved, click Open, and that's going to take a little while for it to break down all of those elements into objects the GT Designer can use. But once that's done, you can see on the right-hand side that we have these groups that we created, and they are now layers in vMix. So I can choose to animate each individual layer, which makes it a little bit easier for me, or you can still do them individually if you like. So firstly, I'm just going to animate this top layer here. I'm going to do this quickly as an example. So now I'm going to play that out. So there you can see I've got that top layer is now animated. So it takes a little while to program all of these animations, but I've already pre-programmed one, so I'm going to load that one up now. Before I go any further, I just wanted to quickly talk about images. So if you've got an image here, if you add an image in the GT Designer using this menu over here, you can right click on them and make changes to them. And you can also add them so that you can make changes to them in vMix as well. However, if you import an image from Photoshop, it just becomes an object that you can't edit. So if you wanted to have an editable image on a title, you'll need to remove this. You wouldn't include the image here. You would add the image in the title designer. So just make sure that you keep that in mind if you want an editable image. All right, so I'm going to quickly snap my fingers and bring across one that I created before. All right, so here I am now. This is one that I created before. As you can see, I've animated all the different elements. You can check out our other videos if you want to see how to animate things or do pages or do all sorts of stuff with the title designer that we have here. All right, so now I need to add this into vMix. So I'm just going to save this. This is called 2.gtzip. Load up vMix, go to add input, title, just go to recent because they're my recently edited ones. Number 2 here is what it's called. Click OK. As you can see, I can edit the text and then I can overlay this into my production like so. So that's how you can create vMix titles from Photoshop files if you wanted to. This is kind of handy for people that have packages where they want to be able to send you a particular lower third look or a bug look or something like that, scoreboards, where you need to have it look a very specific way. If you can get these Photoshop files from them, then you can break them down and you can create cool animated titles directly from exactly what their brand guidelines are. So if you do have any more questions, feel free to drop us an email via the support page on vmix.com. Again, with these type of things, because it's not directly using Photoshop, you will need to test and maybe test some more to make sure it's exactly how you want it to look in vMix. And we have plenty of other videos as well if you want to check out how to do animations and, like I said, pages and data sources and all that kind of stuff as well. So thanks for watching, and we'll stream you later.